Today in this video,
Can I interrupt you?
so when and how to interrupt somebody is very important to know. So in this video, I'm going to teach you how. But first of all, subscribe to the channel so that you will get notifications and other videos to improve your English very fast and very well. Let's dive in. So before we get started with the tips on how to interrupt people politely, I want you to listen to this conversation and find out how they react. And then I will go through details. So let's listen.
Did you hear about the woman who sent her future daughter-in-law an email telling her exactly what she thought of her and then...
Oh, mothers-in-law. I get on really well with my mother-in-law now, but...
Hang on a minute. Apparently, the young woman had made inappropriate comments that the mother-in-law-to-be didn't like.
Actually, can I just say, it was her fiancé's stepmother. It wasn't his mother.
Well, yes. Okay, then. His stepmother. Now, where was I?
Sorry, you were saying the woman wrote an email?
Oh, yes. Anyway, the girl sent it to all her friends, and the next thing, it was on the internet. And now everyone knows about it.
Did you notice how Maggie, Joanna and Sam, three close friends, just interrupted each other and were talking about one same story? So, among friends, it's completely informal. So the friendship is completely friendly. So they can interrupt each other whenever they want to. And it's totally fine because they are friends. But it is completely different to interrupt your colleague, your boss, your manager, your teacher. So you have to find out what kind of situation you are in. Is it formal with your boss, or informal with your friends or family members? So there are some expressions, by the way, you can use in order to interrupt somebody. But before I tell you those beautiful expressions for interrupting people and cutting them off, I want you to listen to this conversation that Maggie is telling the same story, but not to friends, to some colleagues of hers.
And the next thing, it was on the internet, and now everyone knows about it.
But not everyone looks at the internet.
Excuse me, may I interrupt? It was in all the newspapers. That's how it really spread.
Anyway, as I was saying, everyone has read that email now, and it must have been really embarrassing for the mother-in-law.
Did you notice how different it was from the previous one? They didn't interrupt each other every time they wanted. They used some expressions that are formal, like, excuse me, may I interrupt? Or may I interrupt? Right? But as I was saying, these are very appropriate in order to be used among colleagues, people whose friendships are not that friendly, they're not that close. Alright, now let's focus on the expressions that are useful for us. First of all, how to interrupt politely. It can be number 1, I'm sorry, but, if you want to interrupt. Number 2, excuse me, may I interrupt? Or may I interrupt? Interrupt. Number 3, hang on, can I just say... If you want to deal with them, for example, somebody interrupts you and you want to deal with them politely, not to tell them to shut up, okay? To say that politely, you can say, hang on a minute. This means wait a minute. Or anyway. Or number 3, as I was saying. Or number 4, sorry, you were saying, when you want to remind somebody they were talking about something, so that they can continue. And the last one, now, where was I? These are the expressions you can use in order to deal with interruptions. So let's now focus on the tips, the real and golden tips of interrupting people politely. Generally speaking, In English, interruptions are totally fine. But too many of them might sound rude. Alright? And in formal situations, they should be certain interruptions. They shouldn't be for nothing, for making a joke. Right? So be careful with that. But the first tip. Wait for an appropriate time in the conversation to add something that is relevant. This is true for all situations, formal and informal. So do not try to interrupt over and over again, and find the appropriate, the fine time to interrupt people. Tip number 2. Use an opening phrase. In formal situations, preferably with an apology. For example, excuse me, or I'm sorry, may I interrupt? Tip number 3. After interrupting, make it clear that you would like the speaker to continue. For example, you say, excuse me, may I interrupt? And then you say something. After that, you say, oh, by the way, would you continue? So this way you can show that you are polite enough and you care about what they are going to talk about. And next tip, tip number 4. Remind listeners that you are still talking. So whenever you are talking and somebody is interrupting you, remind them that I'm talking, so do not change my topic. Right? How? Like, oh, by the way, as I was saying, you just go back to the topic and you continue that. And the second tip for that is try to get back on the subject so that you can finish what you were saying as I told you. So show your power, show your strength of talking to people, right? Try to finish your topic and then give the whole conversation to them, right? This is the best one. Let's now focus on some types of expressions and phrases that might be useful in conversation. Alright, let's now check on some expressions that we have to say correctly, and I will also tell you the meanings. The first one is for apologizing before interrupting. So number 1, excuse me, may I interrupt? That's right. Number 2, I'm sorry, but may I interrupt? The second part of it is about politely correcting a speaker. You say, actually, that's not quite true. Actually, that's not quite true. This means I don't agree with you because it's not what I was going to say. Can I just point out that it isn't the first time? So, for example, somebody says, oh, it was the first time. And then you say, no, it wasn't the first time. But this way, it's not really polite. So you have to say, can I just point out? Say. Point out means say. Can I just point out that it isn't the first time? Next part is about signaling that you want to continue talking. You want to say, hey, I'm talking. Don't interrupt me. Then you say, excuse me, I haven't finished. Just a minute, please. Hang on a minute. And I was just getting to that. This means that was the point I was going to mention. Wait. Hold your horses. Alright? So, and the last part is about getting the conversation back to where it was. Right? So you say, so you were saying. Now, where was I? Exactly. So we have some expressions and we are going to challenge ourselves if they are true or false. I mean, not true or false, polite or impolite. Number 1, that's not what I was saying. Impolite. So you shouldn't say that. Actually, that's not right at all. Impolite. Don't say it. But number 3, may I just finish? This is polite. 4, hang on a minute. Impolite. So, the last one is, I hate to interrupt, but can I just say something, please? So this is polite too. Remember that whenever I say impolite, it doesn't mean you cannot use them at all. It denotes that you can use them, but try to use them for your close friends, for your friendly relationships. That's all. Thank you so much for watching the video. This is the end of it. I want you to subscribe right now, like the video, and share it with other people you think are not really good at interrupting, or they have to learn how to interrupt. Thanks for watching. This is Saber, and I'll see you next time.